The city is swallowed by darkness. After a grueling 16-hour shift, a veteran police officer thinks he's just responding to another routine domestic call. But at 1442 Maple Street, everything changes. The front door is shattered, streaks of blood trail across the hardwood floor, and upstairs, a woman sobs behind a locked bathroom door. Inside the shadow-choked house, Officer Logan Carter faces a nightmare straight out of legend. Roy, the husband, his face torn, eyes clouded, teeth broken and dripping blood, stands up and lunges at him with inhuman speed, shrugging off bullets that should have stopped him cold. In that moment, Logan realizes, this is no longer a man. Something monstrous is spreading through the city. A deadly outbreak turning people into creatures driven only by hunger. Tonight's survival will come down to a heartbeat, a trigger pull, a single chance to escape. If you think this is just another zombie story, think again. Because behind the emergency broadcast screaming "this is not a test, zombie outbreak detected," lies something far more terrifying. Welcome to Chilling Secrets, the channel where we dive into the world's most gripping, terrifying, and mysterious stories. If you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next spine-chilling episodes. Tonight, we're stepping into the shoes of Officer Logan Carter on the night the city fell apart. What starts as a simple call for help spirals into a fight for survival against something far beyond human. This is more than just a story, it's an experience, a journey into fear, chaos, and the raw instinct to survive. So settle in, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself for the opening chapter of a nightmare called Emergency Alert, Zombie Outbreak Detected. The first hints of disaster never come as explosions or sirens. They seep in quietly, like a foul smell under a locked door. That night the city felt wrong, as if the air itself carried a charge of dread. Officer Logan Carter had worked countless late shifts, but this one felt different from the start. Calls kept coming in, each stranger than the last. Reports of sudden violent outbursts, people clawing at one another's faces, screams echoing through otherwise quiet neighborhoods. Dispatchers whispered about entire blocks without power, about ambulances never arriving at hospitals already overflowing. Logan heard his colleagues vomiting between calls, their skin pale, eyes glassy. It was like the entire department was falling ill at once, yet no one had a name for what was happening. By the time midnight crawled toward the city, Logan's patrol car had become a moving island of flickering dashboard lights, his radio a lifeline laced with static. The city outside was oddly still, but the stillness had teeth. Shadows seemed to stretch too far, streetlights flickered like failing heartbeats, and silence clung to every alley. Then came the dispatch that would rip his night apart. Unit 247 respond to a domestic disturbance at 1442 Maple Street. Female caller. Husband attempting to break down a bathroom door. Woman and child barricaded inside. The dispatcher's voice carried a tremor Logan had never heard before. A kind of fear that didn't belong to routine police work. He keyed the mic automatically. 247 responding, ETA 3 minutes. But his fingers tightened around the steering wheel as if bracing for impact. In 8 years on patrol, he had learned that silence sometimes worked better than sirens in domestic calls, less chance of panic. So he flicked on his lights without the wail, letting the glow cut through the night like a quiet blade. The cruiser's clock glowed 11:47 p.m. He should have been home hours ago, but half the force had called in sick. The ones who showed up looked almost worse, distracted, pale, eyes sunken. Something was building and no one could stop it. He turned onto Maple Street, a neat row of small suburban houses with trimmed lawns and children's bikes forgotten in driveways. But even here the air felt thick, metallic, as if the night had been salted with blood. The house numbers rose in sequence until 1442 appeared in his headlights, a white-painted home with a porch light flickering like a dying candle. The front doors sagged inward, splintered around the lock, and dark streaks glistened on the paint. His stomach tightened. Training told him it was blood. Logan stepped out, the weight of his Glock at his hip a small comfort. He called in for backup, doors been forced, requesting immediate support. But only static hissed back, a hungry white noise that swallowed his words. The radio had been patchy all night, another puzzle piece in a picture he couldn't yet see. The porch light above buzzed as moths battered themselves against its yellow glow. He climbed the steps, every muscle keyed to fight or flight. "Police! Anyone here?" His voice fell flat against the thick air. A child whimpered somewhere inside. A woman sobbed. Then silence. Logan's flashlight carved a narrow tunnel through the darkness as he crossed the threshold. The living room had been turned upside down, coffee table shattered, family photos cracked and scattered, a TV ripped from its mount leaving wires dangling like torn veins. Across the hardwood floor, dark smears formed a path leading toward the hallway, glinting wetly in the beam of his light. The coppery scent grew stronger with every step. "Mrs. Mathis?" he called. "Police. Stay where you are." The only answer was a rhythmic pounding from upstairs, the sound of a body slamming against the door. It wasn't frantic, but mechanical, too steady, too mindless. Normal people didn't move like that. His radio flickered with fragments. "Officer down at, doesn't make sense, aim for the," then died again. Sweat prickled the back of his neck as he advanced. Family portraits lined the hallway walls, frozen smiles of a couple and their young boy. He swept the beam upward when a droplet hit his shoulder, dark, sticky liquid dripping from the ceiling, spreading into a growing stain. The pounding stopped. Silence crashed down. Then came the sound of ragged breathing, wet, gurgling breaths that belonged to no healthy person, from the top of the stairs just beyond sight. Logan swallowed hard. "Mr. Mathis? This is Officer Carter. Let's talk about what's going on." A low sound answered, not a growl, not a moan, but something primal that made his scalp tighten. A woman's voice followed from behind the bathroom door. "Please, help us. He's not himself. Oh God, there's so much blood." Logan started up the stairs, gun in hand but not raised. Blood streaked the steps, some of it dry, some still wet enough to glisten. Halfway up he spotted a tooth lying on the tread, torn out roots and all. The wet breathing grew louder. He reached the top landing, swept the flashlight left and right. The hallway stretched in both directions, one bathroom door to his left gouged with deep claw marks. To the right, something moved. A figure stood at the far end of the hall, head down, shoulders hunched, bare chest streaked with dark rivulets. Logan's voice came out tight. "Roy Mathis. Show me your hands." The figure's head snapped up with a jerky, unnatural motion. The light caught his face and Logan's stomach lurched. The eyes were bloodshot, the whites jaundiced yellow, blood and saliva dripping from shattered teeth, a chunk of lower lip missing. But worse than the wounds was the expression, or the lack of it. No fear, no rage, only blank hunger. "Last warning, Roy. Show me your hands and get on the ground." The thing's chest moved wrong, breath starting and stopping as if its body had forgotten how to do it. The radio burst to life one last time. "All units be advised. Multiple reports of violent subjects, extreme aggression, approach with caution, deadly force," then cut off. Roy lunged. He moved like a puppet with half its strings cut, legs bending wrong but covering the distance with terrifying speed. Bloody hands reached for Logan's throat. Logan backpedaled, nearly slipping on the stairs, flashlight beam bouncing wildly. Broken teeth snapped inches from his face. He had a heartbeat to decide. "Stop now!" he shouted, but the creature didn't even flinch. Time slowed. He saw Roy's eyes up close, nothing human left, the blackened wound on his shoulder swelling, veins spiderwebbing outward. "Please don't make me," Logan whispered, and squeezed the trigger. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed hall. The round struck center mass, blood spraying the wall behind. Roy didn't stop. Another shot punched next to the first. Still Roy came on, clawing at Logan's vest. They crashed together, Logan's head striking the wall as his flashlight spun away casting frantic shadows. Up close Roy's breath stank of rot and copper, his skin cold and stiff like meat left too long in the fridge. Logan braced his forearm under Roy's chin, straining against snapping teeth. He drove his knee into Roy's stomach once, twice. Nothing. The thing didn't react to pain, only pressed harder, jaw working inches from his face. The bathroom door rattled. The woman screamed, "Roy, stop! Please, baby, stop!" But Roy wasn't there anymore. This was something else wearing his skin. Logan twisted, bringing his gun up between them, barrel under Roy's jaw. For a heartbeat, Roy's teeth closed on the slide, scraping metal. "I'm sorry," Logan hissed, and fired. The bullet tore through Roy's jaw and out his cheek in a spray of teeth and blood. His body went rigid, then collapsed, dead weight pinning Logan to the floor. Blood soaked his uniform, hot and thick. For a long moment Logan lay still, heart hammering, staring at the ruined face inches from his own. The house was silent except for the muffled sobs from behind the bathroom door, and his own ragged breathing. Everything he'd heard over the radio, the sick officers, the bizarre assaults, the hospital chaos, clicked into a single horrifying realization. Something was spreading through the city, something that could turn an ordinary man into this. He forced himself to push Roy's body off, hands shaking, and keyed his radio. "Dispatch, shots fired at 1442 Maple. Suspect down." "I repeat, suspect," static answered. In the distance more sirens wailed. Too many sirens, a city crying out. Logan stood, gun still trembling in his grip, and stared down at the corpse. The wound on Roy's shoulder looked like a bite, swollen and black. Dark veins spread like cracks in marble. The blood pool beneath him was wrong too dark, moving almost like oil. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was the first sign of something far larger, something that would swallow the city whole before dawn. He glanced toward the bathroom door where a mother and child clung to each other on the other side, waiting for rescue. They had no idea what he just fought upstairs. He took a steadying breath. He would have to protect them. He would have to get them out. Because whatever had begun here tonight was only the beginning, the first tremor before the quake. And Logan Carter, exhausted and bleeding, had just become one of the only people standing between them and the nightmare rushing in from the dark. The city outside 1442 Maple Street had already started to unravel, but Logan Carter only understood it fully once he stepped back into the night. The air itself felt infected, heavy with the copper tang of blood and the acrid smoke of distant fires. Sirens wailed without pattern, overlapping like a chorus of panic. Street lights flickered and died. The neat suburban order of Maple Street was dissolving into a fever dream. Behind him, the house still held the smell of dark, oily blood, a smell that clung to his uniform and his skin. He wiped his face with a trembling hand and found it streaked with Roy's blackened blood. It smeared like oil, tacky and wrong. From behind the barricaded bathroom door came the muffled cries of Lena and her son Eli. "Mrs. Mathis," Logan called, forcing his voice steady. "It's safe for now. But we have to leave." The lock clicked, and a pale woman appeared clutching a boy no older than 7. The boy's eyes darted to the ruined hallway and the dark stain on the stairs. Logan quickly stepped between him and the sight, shielding the child's view. "Stay behind me," he said. "We're moving." Downstairs, the street outside glowed with the pulsing red and blue of his cruiser lights. But something in his instinct screamed danger. He had seen Roy rise after being shot in the head and chest. He had seen black veins crawl outward from a bite wound like ink in water. He didn't know how far this infection reached, only that it spread faster than anything human medicine could fight. He guided Lena and Eli out the front door, Glock in his grip, eyes scanning the night. The once quiet neighborhood now held sounds that belonged in nightmares. Distant screaming, glass breaking, wet snarls echoing between houses. Across the street, a man stumbled into the glow of a porch light, face gray, arms stiff. He slammed himself into a door over and over, each impact a dull drumbeat. Someone inside screamed. Logan's gut clenched. The city was collapsing house by house. They moved quickly toward the cruiser, shoes crunching on broken glass. The mother whispered prayers in a trembling voice, and the boy held onto her with both hands. Logan opened the rear door for them and slid behind the wheel. The radio spat static punctuated by fragments of terror. Memorial Hospital overrun. Biters inside. Aim for the head. He flicked the siren once, testing. It died in a strangled warble. Communications were breaking down. He put the car in drive and eased away from Maple Street, scanning for movement. Fires bloomed on the horizon, orange against the night sky. The further they drove, the clearer the signs of infection became. Streets littered with abandoned vehicles, some still idling, headlights cutting empty beams through the smoke. Dark figures moved between them, jerky silhouettes bending at impossible angles. When his headlights hit them, their heads snapped toward the car in unison, like predators catching a scent. Lena whispered, "What's happening to everyone?" Logan's mouth opened, but no answer came. He remembered Roy's body, how it had gone cold then stood back up. He remembered the black blood moving like oil. "We don't know yet," he said finally, "but it's not safe anywhere." At an intersection, a woman in hospital scrubs stumbled into the road, arms outstretched, throat torn open. Behind her, a man with a butcher's apron charged on all fours, mouth open in a soundless scream. Logan swerved hard, tires squealing. The impact of their eyes on the vehicle felt almost physical, an entire city hunting them. He headed for the main avenue, hoping the wider road would be clearer. It wasn't. Every block brought new scenes of collapse. A bus on its side spilling passengers who clawed at each other. Storefronts with shattered glass and trails of blood leading inside. Children's toys abandoned in red smears. Blackened veins crawled up victims' necks, their eyes milky, their movements stiff and wrong. Those who died did not stay down. Logan's police instincts warred with his survival drive. He saw people pounding on windows for help, waving flashlights from rooftops, even running into the street in front of his car. Some he might have saved under other circumstances. But each time he slowed, figures began to converge, drawn by the sound, and he had to accelerate again. Every stop was a death sentence. They turned onto a narrower street lined with shuttered shops. Smoke rolled low across the asphalt, hiding potholes and debris. Suddenly a group of armed civilians appeared at the far end, blocking the road with a barricade of overturned carts and trashed bins. They carried bats, crowbars, even rifles, their eyes hollow and feverish. A makeshift sign painted in dripping red letters read, "No cops. No biters." Logan slowed, but his gut told him these weren't saviors. They looked as dangerous as the infected, scanning his car for supplies like predators eyeing prey. One of them stepped forward, waving a rifle. "Out of the car!" he shouted. "We're taking it!" Logan's pulse spiked. He remembered training scenarios, but none of them included a city falling to pieces. "Hold tight," he muttered to Lena and Eli. Then he floored the accelerator. The cruiser roared, tires spitting gravel, and he swerved around the barricade before the rifleman could aim. A shot cracked past the windshield. Another sparked off the hood. Lena screamed. Eli buried his face in her coat. Logan didn't let up until the street opened onto another avenue. They weren't alone. As civilization crumbled, survivors turned on each other, fighting for food, weapons, and cars. Logan glimpsed a grocery store lit by fires inside, two men dragging a third across the floor while others looted shelves. A gas station erupted in flames as armed youths siphoned fuel and fled. In every direction the infection and the human desperation were feeding off each other, a spiral of collapse. He ducked into a side street to break line of sight, parking behind a delivery truck. For a moment the car was silent except for their breathing. Lena's hands shook on her son's shoulders. "Where can we go?" she asked, her voice a brittle thread. "There must be somewhere safe." Logan rubbed his forehead. His radio spat another broken alert. "Unexplained violent outbreaks. Shelter in place. Do not approach infected individuals." It sounded like a movie trailer but was deadly real. He glanced at the boy's wide eyes. "We'll find somewhere," he said, though doubt gnawed at him. He cut through back streets, using alleys to avoid main roads. Each turn revealed new horrors. In one courtyard, a group of infected tore at a fallen man, teeth clicking like insects. In another, a woman crouched over a body, tearing with her bare hands before snapping her head up at the sound of the car. The infection wasn't just fast. It was ravenous. Black blood streaked their mouths and hands like paint. The deeper they drove, the clearer the pattern became. Noise drew them. Movement triggered pursuit. But obstacles, fences, clutter, broken stairways, slowed them. Logan began to think in terms of tactics, not patrol routes. He killed the headlights and let the engine idle as quietly as possible. He memorized escape routes, scanning for bridges, overpasses, locked courtyards. Survival was no longer about enforcing law. It was about staying one step ahead of the tide. At last he spotted a small municipal building with high stone steps and metal doors chained shut. Above it fluttered a faded banner advertising flu shots. It might have once been a community clinic or government office. Now it was silent. Logan parked the car behind it and killed the engine. For a moment there was only the faint crackle of distant fire. "Out," he whispered. "We can't stay in the car. We'll be a beacon." They moved quickly, Lena clutching Eli, Logan leading with gun drawn. The steps were slick with some dark fluid he didn't want to identify. Around the corner came the wet dragging sound of infected feet. They slipped into a narrow alley between two buildings, climbing over bins and pallets to reach a back courtyard. Here Logan crouched behind a wall, scanning for threats. Across the yard, he saw more survivors barricading themselves inside a diner. Their faces in the window were pale masks of fear. He wanted to help but knew he couldn't. Suddenly a scream erupted from the diner, followed by a crash of glass. Figures burst out through the window, infected now, moving with that same puppet-like jerk, limbs bent wrong. They fanned out, sniffing the air. One turned its milky eyes toward the alley. Logan's grip tightened on the Glock. He guided Lena and Eli toward a stairwell leading to an old fire escape. The boy climbed first, small and nimble, followed by his mother. Logan brought up the rear, feeling every creak of the metal under his boots. Below, the infected shuffled closer, sniffing for the blood still on his sleeve. From the top landing he could see the city sprawling under a haze of smoke. Fires flickered in office towers like torches in a tomb. Sirens rose and fell without coordination. Helicopter spotlights cut brief white arcs before vanishing. The infection had swallowed entire districts already. As they crossed the rooftop, Lena whispered, "Why aren't they dying?" Logan's mind flashed to Roy taking bullet after bullet. "Head," he said softly. "Always the head." He led them across connected roofs, jumping narrow gaps, weaving between vents and air conditioners. From above they could see the chaos more clearly, streets clogged with abandoned cars, clusters of infected moving like schools of fish, and here and there gangs of armed survivors fighting each other as much as the creatures. It was a city devouring itself. On the far side of the block, Logan found a stairwell leading down to a fenced courtyard. He scanned for movement, then helped Lena and Eli descend. The boy's hand slipped in his. His palm was cold with fear but steady. Logan felt a spark of admiration. He's smart, he thought. He's quiet. He's learning. They reached the ground and slipped through a gap in the fence. Ahead lay the faint glow of downtown and somewhere beyond, the promise of military evacuation. But between them and that hope stretched miles of streets ruled by the infected and the desperate. Logan checked his magazine, 15 rounds left, and exhaled slowly. The city was no longer a city. It was a hunting ground, its rules rewritten overnight. The infection had turned neighbors into predators, turned law into memory. Black blood spread in veins across parties and across neighborhoods alike, and every death fed the tide. But Logan still had Lena and Eli alive beside him, and as long as they kept moving, there was a chance. He took the boy's hand and led them deeper into the shadows, mind already mapping routes, listening for every sound. The city might be falling, but he wasn't ready to fall with it. Not yet. They had been moving for nearly an hour, weaving through alleyways and across rooftops, skirting gangs and herds of the infected. Logan Carter's sense of the city had inverted. Streets that once felt safe now felt like open killing grounds. Narrow service corridors and broken stairwells became lifelines. He counted ammunition the way a drowning man counts his breaths. Lena and Eli followed without complaint, exhaustion etched into their faces. Somewhere to the east lay Central Station, the last hope of evacuation. But between them and that fortress were miles of chaos, crumbling barricades, and an ocean of teeth. They descended from the roof into a side street where trash burned in oil drums. The glow made silhouettes dance on the walls like demons. Logan paused to listen. Above the wind came a sound he had learned to dread, a chorus of wet breathing and the click of teeth, growing louder. "This way," he whispered, guiding them toward a collapsed delivery ramp that led into the lower level of a parking structure. Concrete swallowed them, muffling the noise outside. Inside the garage the air was damp and smelled of fuel. Cars sat abandoned in haphazard rows, some with doors still flung open, others with black blood smeared across the glass. Logan led them between columns, scanning for movement. A soft sob drifted from the far corner. He froze, motioning Lena and Eli to stay back. His flashlight beam caught a young man crouched by a sedan, hands raised. "Don't shoot," the man pleaded. "They're everywhere." Logan studied him. Clothes torn, no visible bites. "Get up." Quietly. The young man obeyed, trembling. "Name?" Logan asked. "Tyler." His voice cracked. "My dad, he got bit. I had to leave him." Logan kept his gun low but ready. "We're heading for Central Station. Military evacuation. Stick with us if you can keep up." Tyler nodded desperately, eyes darting toward the shadows. They crossed the garage and emerged onto another street lined with shuttered shops. Above, a billboard flickered a garbled emergency alert, the letters bleeding into static. The infection had moved faster than information itself. Lena clutched Eli's hand tighter. "How much farther?" she asked. Logan glanced at the street grid in his head. 5, maybe 6 blocks to the main avenue. Then we cut east. As they advanced, the city opened around them like a wound. Military barricades lay overturned, sandbags shredded, armored trucks gutted and smoking. Black blood pooled in gutters, glistening like oil in the streetlight glow. The infected moved in packs now, 5 or 10 at a time, sniffing for prey. Their coordination chilled Logan more than their speed. They weren't just shambling corpses, they were learning. A scream cut through the night. Across the avenue a man in business attire bolted from a doorway, pursued by 3 infected whose limbs jerked at impossible angles. He didn't make it to the street. The first creature leapt, knocking him down. Teeth flashed in the gloom. The scream ended in a wet gurgle. Logan forced himself to keep moving. "Eyes forward," he muttered. "Noise draws them." They ducked into another alley only to find their path blocked by a crude barricade of dumpsters and barbed wire. Tyler's face went pale. "We're trapped." Logan scanned the walls. A metal fire escape hung 3 meters up. He laced his fingers to boost Lena and Eli first. The boy scrambled up like a cat, his small hands gripping the ladder. Lena followed, panting with effort. Tyler hesitated, then jumped, fingers just catching the rung. Logan shoved him upward. "Climb!" Below, the wet breathing grew louder. Figures emerged at the alley's mouth, heads snapping toward them. Black veins glowed faintly beneath their skin like cracks in volcanic rock. Logan jumped, caught the lowest rung, and hauled himself up as the first infected slammed into the dumpsters below, clawing upward with broken fingers. They climbed onto the roof, hearts hammering. From here the city looked like a battlefield filmed in slow motion, fires burning across office blocks, columns of smoke rising into the bruised sky, distant gunfire stuttering like a broken engine. Helicopter spotlights strafed the streets, cutting white tunnels through the chaos. But each sweep drew more infected, their heads tilting up as one to follow the light. Logan crouched near a vent, scanning the horizon. "Station's still east," he said. "We keep high as long as we can." Tyler sat shaking, hugging himself. "How do you know they won't climb?" Logan didn't answer. In his gut he knew it was only a matter of time. They crossed rooftops until they reached the edge of a wider boulevard. Below, a tide of infected surged around stalled cars, their movements disturbingly synchronized. In the middle of the street stood a group of armed civilians, looters or self-styled militia, firing wildly into the horde. Their gunfire attracted more creatures from side streets, creating a whirlpool of chaos. Logan saw an opening, a service alley on the opposite side, momentarily clear. "We jump across here then down," he said. "Move fast." One by one they crossed a narrow plank bridging two buildings. Eli went first, eyes closed, his mother whispering encouragement. Tyler next, muttering prayers. Logan last, scanning below. Halfway across, a helicopter thundered overhead, its loudspeaker blaring an evacuation order for Memorial Bridge. The infected reacted instantly, their heads whipping upward. In unison they began to climb stalled vehicles, forming grotesque pyramids to reach the overpass. Logan's stomach dropped. They weren't just learning, they were evolving. They descended into the alley opposite, landing hard on cracked pavement. Ahead loomed the skeletal structure of Central Station's clock tower, silhouetted against the smoke-choked sky. They were close, so close he could almost taste relief. But the noise of the helicopter had stirred the city like a stick in an anthill. Shapes poured from side streets, converging on their path. Logan led them through a maze of back streets, ducking under fire escapes, vaulting low fences, squeezing between trash bins. Each corner revealed new hazards. In one courtyard, a pack of infected crouched around a fallen horse from a mounted police unit, tearing strips from it like wolves. In another, a group of survivors fought each other over a crate of bottled water, oblivious to the creatures creeping toward them. The collapse of society had accelerated. Resources were scarce, trust non-existent. Finally, they reached a wide underpass leading to the station district. Military floodlights glared from barricades at the far end, but the space between was an open kill zone littered with abandoned cars. Logan halted, scanning for movement. "We run straight," he said. "No noise. No stopping." They started forward, weaving between vehicles. Halfway through, a figure lurched from behind a van, a woman in torn joggers, her face a ruin of blood and milky eyes. More shapes emerged behind her, drawn by the scent of living bodies. Logan fired twice, headshots both, but the noise unleashed hell. The underpass erupted with movement. Infected poured from doorways and service tunnels, scrambling over cars, climbing on each other's backs. Logan grabbed Lena's arm. "Run!" They sprinted, boots slipping on pooled blood. Tyler stumbled but kept moving. Eli clung to his mother's hand, his small legs pumping. A shape vaulted from a car roof and landed on Logan, clawing for his throat. He jammed his forearm into its jaw, teeth snapping inches from his skin, and drove his Glock upward, firing point-blank into its skull. The blast painted the wall behind them. He shoved the corpse aside and ran harder. Ahead, soldiers at the barricade had noticed. Muzzle flashes strobed as they laid down suppressing fire, dropping infected with controlled bursts. "This way!" a soldier shouted through a megaphone. Logan pushed Lena and Eli ahead of him, Tyler close behind. They burst from the underpass into the glare of floodlights as soldiers pulled them through the barricade. Inside the perimeter, the station plaza was a war zone. Civilians huddled behind sandbags while medics worked frantically. Military vehicles idled, engines rumbling, ready to move at a moment's notice. Overhead, a helicopter banked low, its downdraft scattering papers and ash. The entire city seemed to press against the barricades, a living tide. A captain in combat gear approached. "Evacuation trains leaving in 10 minutes. Get inside." His voice was steady, but his eyes darted toward the barricades where infected bodies piled higher by the minute. Logan guided Lena and Eli toward the station entrance, heart pounding. He had made it this far, but relief refused to come. The infected outside were changing, working together, their movements too deliberate to be mere instinct. Somewhere in that tide of bodies were people who had been neighbors, shopkeepers, teachers. Now they were predators with black blood and endless hunger. As they reached the marble steps, a sound rolled over the plaza, a deep, collective shriek like metal tearing. The infected surged as one, slamming against the barricades. Soldiers fired heavy weapons, but the creatures climbed over their own fallen, forming ramps of flesh. Logan looked back just in time to see one of the barricades buckle. "Inside, now!" he barked, pushing Lena and Eli through the doors. Tyler stumbled after them, clutching his side. Logan slammed the door behind them, locking eyes with a soldier on the other side. The man gave a grim nod before turning back to the fight. Inside the station's cavernous hall, the ceiling echoed with shouts, sobs, and the distant drum of gunfire. Medics moved between the wounded, checking for bites with gloved hands. Loudspeakers blared instructions. All civilians to the platforms, trains departing on the hour, citywide sanitization at dawn. Logan's stomach twisted. Sanitization? He knew what that meant. Fire, bombs, a city burned clean. He led his group toward the platforms, weaving through clusters of shell-shocked survivors. Every face carried the same haunted look. Every bandage could hide an infection. As he passed a pillar, a man convulsed and dropped to the floor, his bite wound already black. Soldiers dragged him away before he could rise. Lena's grip tightened on Eli. "Will the train get us out?" she asked. Logan glanced toward the tracks where military locomotives idled, their steel sides streaked with soot. "If anything can," he said. "But stay sharp. This isn't over." The night outside screamed as the city's last defenses collapsed. Explosions rocked the station, shaking dust from the rafters. Somewhere above, the sky was turning gray with pre-dawn light. Logan loaded his last magazine and met Lena's gaze. "We've survived this far," he said quietly. "We'll survive the next part too." But even as he said it, a cold certainty crept through him. The infection was faster than the trains, faster than any plan. They were running from something that was already inside the city's veins, and maybe inside the crowd around them. For now, though, they had a chance. And a chance was more than most had tonight. What would you do if the world around you fell apart overnight? Imagine stepping outside your home and realizing the rules you've trusted your whole life no longer apply. No police, no hospitals, no power. Just the sound of footsteps in the dark and the knowledge that anyone could turn on you at any second. Would you run for the hills, barricade yourself with food and water, or pick up a weapon and fight your way through? And if you were in Logan's shoes, would you risk everything to save strangers? Or focus only on your own survival? I'm curious about your survival instincts. Comment below with your plan. Would you head for the mountains, the ocean, or underground bunkers? Would you trust anyone? And what's the one item you'd never leave behind if you had to escape at a moment's notice? Drop your answers in the comments, not only because it helps the channel grow, but because your ideas might spark new storylines for future episodes. And who knows? The best comments could even appear in our next video. Let's see how creative and resourceful the Chilling Secrets community can be. As the train pulls away from the burning city, dawn breaks over a skyline collapsing into fire and ash. For a moment, there's silence, not the calm kind, but the hollow quiet that follows catastrophe. Logan, Lena, Eli, and the handful of survivors have escaped the streets, but what waits ahead is unknown. Somewhere in the shadows of the train cars, infection could already be spreading. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the military's safe zone might not be safe at all. This was only the opening chapter of a nightmare, a glimpse into how quickly society can crumble, how fragile our routines and comforts really are. We've seen black blood, impossible speed, and the city's collapse from inside the eye of the storm. But what about the next phase? What if the infection has evolved further? What if the survivors aren't as alone as they think? If you've felt the tension, the dread, and the pulse of survival through tonight's story, make sure to subscribe to Chilling Secrets and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Comment your theories below. Is the train really safe? Will Logan and the others make it to the evacuation point? Or is something far worse waiting for them? In our next episode, we'll dive deeper into the aftermath, the first hours inside the so-called safe zone, the hidden danger that rides with them, and the moment when survival becomes more than just running, it becomes choosing who you can trust. The nightmare is far from over, and the dawn may bring no comfort at all. Stay tuned, and prepare yourself for the next chilling chapter.